Many popular sitcoms from the late 80s and early 90s have not aged particularly well. There's Roseanne, who was rebooted only to be rebranded as The Connors after star Roseanne Barr's previous racist comments came to light. The Cosby Show is also hard to enjoy with all of the crimes its star Bill Cosby committed. The only beloved sitcom from that era that seems to be safe these days is The Golden Girls. Surely there was no hidden message in a show about four elderly ladies growing old together. There's no way that this seemingly innocent show could have any ulterior motive. I'm here to tell you that's unfortunately not the case.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again.
On today's episode of Shows You Thought Were for Straight People but Were Really Made for the Queer Community, we have the 80s classic, The Golden Girls. It's just four women who all engage in straight relationships. They're actually queer allies. In the pilot episode, Blanche is planning to get married, forcing Dorothy and Rose to move out, which leads to Rose saying,
"We can't afford to buy a house. What do we have for collateral? A gay cook?"
In the original version of the show, the girls live-in cook and open homosexual Coco was supposed to be the fourth member of the cast. It wasn't until producers saw Estelle Getty's Sophia Petrillo that they quietly forgot about Coco and selected this sassy octogenarian to fill out the squad. From the very beginning, the Golden Girls was going to have a gay main character that would live alongside Dorothy, Rose, and Blanche. But I hear you saying, just because the Golden Girls had one gay character doesn't mean that they were secretly a show for the queer community. Well, that's where you're wrong. The Golden Girls didn't just have one queer character, but several on their show, however brief their time may have been. This was sometimes played for laughs, like in the season 2, episode 5, Isn't It Romantic?, where an openly lesbian woman develops a crush on Rose.
"I'm quite fond of you."
"I'm fond of you too."
But more frequently, the Golden Girls addressed the real struggles queer people were living with. In season 5, episode 19, 72 Hours, the Golden Girls address the AIDS epidemic when Rose finds out that her blood transfusion may have had HIV antibodies.
The hospital thinks the blood may have contained HIV antibodies.
HIV? Wait a minute.
Each of the four women come to terms with what an HIV diagnosis means, but showing HIV/AIDS affecting someone outside of the queer community was a big step for the time. The misinformation surrounding the epidemic was widespread, but characters and arcs like that only come once every few episodes. The whole show isn't about queer issues. You're right in assuming that the show isn't about queer issues, but rather queer joy. One big aspect of the show is that all four of these women found each other. They picked each other when their biological family wasn't enough. This is something that can be found all around the queer community. People's biological families reject them, leaving queer people to seek out their chosen family. Exactly what Dorothy, Rose, and Blanche have. The core of the show, finding and choosing your family, is something that every queer person can relate to. Chosen family is addressed as early as the pilot episode. When faced with the prospect of having to move out of the house, Rose says,
We were all so lonely, and then by a miracle we found each other.
Rose, we both answered an ad to share Blanche's house that we found in the supermarket. It was not the resurrection. It is hardly a miracle.
To me, it was a miracle, because we're happy.
Blanche doesn't get married, and at the end of the episode says,
And then I realized I was feeling good because of you. You made the difference. You're my family, and you make me happy to be alive.
The women choose each other, something quintessentially queer. It's been nearly 30 years since the Golden Girls aired their last episode, but the show that dared to support the queer community paved the way for new queer shows. Having queer characters, living queer experiences, and seeing queer joy on screen makes the Golden Girls a truly queer show.